Hello and welcome to Bear Football here on the Barroom Network. John Buffone alongside Aldo Gandia. Danny Shimon will be joining us shortly. There he is. Danny Shimon's here. The Bears fall 31-30 to the Detroit Lions in what can only be described as a bizarre, frustrating, annoying, at some points exciting game. A lot to go over here, so we'll just start at the 10,000 feet view. Aldo, initial reaction when the clock hits triple zeros.
Well, I feel like the NFL desperately wants the Chicago Bears to have a top 3 draft pick. It's, you know, I'm kidding, of course, but you can't help but wonder if the NFL officials aren't in cahoots here to make this as tough as possible for the Bears to win games. They're not getting calls, obvious calls that always are made for the home team. And it's tough enough. This team doesn't have the weapons to beat themselves when they make mistakes, but actually that's kind of changing a little bit. But they definitely don't have the weapons to win a game when it's the officials and themselves, making it difficult. So it's very, very annoying from that standpoint. From another standpoint, which we'll get into in detail, there are a lot of encouraging things for a team that's rebuilding and clearly doesn't have the talent yet to compete at a high level, but certainly has some talent that can compete at a high level.
Danny, at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the Bears score 30 points again. So that's something that it's not like the loss to the Commanders where it's just like, okay, nothing's getting better and they lost. So to continue seeing the offense take a step forward, the defense is in shambles. That is you give up. I get that the pick six was a bad play, but holy smokes, you give up a 91-yard drive in 3 minutes at the end of the game. I mean, I can't begin to express my frustration when I see something like that. It's just you have all you gotta do is keep them from scoring and going 91 yards in 3 minutes, and they did it. Initial reaction, Danny.
I mean, I tweeted out, I'm like, this sucks, but I feel like I've been tweeting it out for like 3 weeks in a row now. It's just like I said, John, again, the offense puts up 30-some points, and the defense just cannot stop them. And I mean, they'll have a stop here and there, but when you really need a stop to secure a win or just keep momentum, the defense just can't do it, whether it's the run defense, whether it's a pass defense. At halftime, we talked about they're not getting pressure on Goff. So what do you got to do? You got to blitz. So what happened? They blitzed in the second half. They blitz the linebackers. You saw Sandberg get a sack. You got Morrow get a sack. But then what happens when you blitz? We said either they're going to give up a big play or they're going to get the quarterback on the ground. And unfortunately, they give up big plays again. So it's just like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But unfortunately, you're not getting pressure with your front four guys. So you got to bring extra pressure. And when you bring extra pressure, your guys in the back end are not being able to go ahead and cover and get you off the football field. And just another crushing blow. I mean, especially to a team like the Lions, where you're up 24-10 at home. You're thinking, all right, this game is pretty much not in the bag because there was plenty of time left, but it's just like, come on, guys, just got to run it out. You'll get a couple stops, and you're good there. And now you have the Lions celebrating on your home field, and like like someone said in the chat, celebrating like they won a Super Bowl. So it's just like it's crushing. But to all those points, referees are horrible again, but I just hate blaming referees because the Bears had 9 or 10 penalties?
9 penalties for 86 yards.
Very uncharacteristic of this team so far this season, but this time after time. But again, some of those penalties, in my opinion, I think Aldo's opinion as well, were just a little bit ticky-tack and not warranted. So, but at the end of the day, you had the lead. Justin tried to look like that was a screen play to Kmet that they blew up. Looked like he was trying to get rid of the football, just didn't get enough on it. At the same time, was hit or was feeling pressure. Pick six, that was a big momentum swing. But he come right back and he gets that 67-yard touchdown run, and now you're up. And again, the missed extra point by Santos. But I tweeted out, I'm like, both kicking units on both teams were having some problems. I don't know if it was a turf issue or what, but that was huge. And you kind of felt it when you missed that point. You're like, this is going to come back and haunt the Bears. And sure enough, they drive right back down the field, and they score the go ahead. And at the end there, just couldn't pull it out. But one of their bigger or more hidden, I think, turning points is when the Bears went up 24-10 on the ensuing kickoff. Santos kicks it out of bounds, and then they get the ball. Lions get the ball right there at the 40. I'm like, not sure what happened there. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to talk to Sano and see what's going on today. You know, the ball, the kickoff was out of bounds, the missed extra point. What was going on with him today? I'm curious to see if it was a turf or just something maybe mechanical, or maybe it was just something, an injury he's playing with. So who knows? But yeah, this game sucked.
Yeah, you look over it and it's just like it just seemed like there was a looming cloud, like something you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. And to your point, when they miss the extra point, you think that's going to come back and get you. And then I was hoping the end when they got the ball back, they basically, Mark Sanchez was talking about just killing the clock and trying. I'm like, I think they should probably go down and try to score again. But instead of just saying, let's just see if we can take 4 minutes off the clock. But I don't have very many qualms about the offense today. I mean, they did what the pick six sucked, but it is what it is. I think anytime if the Chicago Bears are consistently scoring 30 points in the last month, and if I would have told you that 2 or 3 months ago, the Bears are going to score 4 straight games where they're going to be averaging around 30 some points, you'd be thinking they what 3-1, 4-0, at least split.
First thing I asked you get drug tested. That's the first thing I would do.
Right.
Especially after that Washington game, right? That game
right.
where like this team just looked out of sync offensively, but then yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so to what we were talking about, 9 penalties, 86 yards. Aldo, you kind of touched on this earlier, but yeah, this is that was an kind of undisciplined performance today, where there was just some weird things that happened. Not now, some of those were very questionable calls. I will say that much. I'm also not in the business of, bitching about the refs for an hour. I don't want to do that. But I will say there were some questionable calls there. The holding call in the first half is the one that jumps out on me. Some of there were no PI calls on a few that maybe should have been called. So I understand the beef on both ways, but anyway you cut it, they got 9 penalties today for 86 yards, and a lot of them were killers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was certainly some undisciplined play by the Bears when you look at the penalties that they were really responsible for, and you look at missed tackles, and you look at, I'm sure once we study the tape, you're probably going to see some misassignments and so forth. That is concerning, but again, we're dealing with a roster of guys who for the most part, many of the people are new to the league or have been vagabonds in the league. And so that type of stuff is going to happen. You don't have a championship roster right now. You have a team that is fighting and is fighting hard, but creating these mental mistakes that result in missed tackles and result in bad penalties and so forth. It's almost, I hate to say this, I know people are going to throw rocks at me, Aldo's a participation trophy kind of guy, but it's almost excusable because when you look at the big picture of what this team is building, you have to be encouraged by what we're seeing. We're seeing in Justin Fields, we are seeing a football player that can potentially transcend the position, much like other very athletic quarterbacks have done in NFL history. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. This is truly how I feel. This guy is creating excitement and Michael Jordan-like plays on the football field that are just things that I've rarely seen in my life. And so that is the one thing I'm walking away from this game. I'll take the loss, but it's like Danny has been preaching since day one when we acquired Justin Fields. It's all about developing Justin Fields, and right now he still has a long way to go in the passing game, but what he is doing with his instincts, with his athleticism, and his smarts is pretty effing impressive.
Right, and if you look down his stats today, they're pretty good. 12 for 20 for 167 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and then of course he carried the ball 13 times for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was a good day to start him on your fantasy team, which I did. So that's one thing that I can take that away with me anyway. But I think you're right where you say you see this development of the quarterback, and you see something special, and it's getting to that point now where I see when he drops back, I get like that. The only player that I'm trying to that I remember from my childhood with it. I just was watching him like he's never going to go down on the first hit. It was like Steve McNair. He was just so slippery. You were never going to bring him down whenever the one guy got a free shot at him. And that's whenever I see Fields under pressure, which is happening quite a bit. I never think that he's going down on first contact. I always feel like he's going to spin out. He's going to slide out. He's going to elude, and he's going to run. He's going to do something. To have that feeling about your quarterback is a good feeling. Like any play could go to the house. Any play could be a home run if he can buy that time to do that. And so yeah, it was encouraging to watch the offense. And I mean, guys, honestly, we're on a Bears podcast when we're talking about how the offense is keeping us, keeping our spirits high. So let's take that for what it is. Just let's look at that holistically. We're talking about how the offense is making us happy and the defense sucks. So let's just enjoy that, or at least observe that, and then realize that there's still a lot of stuff that has to be done. There's still a lot of things that need to be addressed. I mean, if you want to put a bow on it, yeah, they probably they're going to get a better draft pick out of this, or they're going to have the quote unquote tiebreaker with Detroit to maybe have a better pick. But it's still, at the end of the day, you want to win that game. I mean, winning that game 32-30, or pulling out a 1-point win would have just been a big boost, as opposed to saying, well, we see all these good things, we still lost by 1. That's what kicks me, because that you could have had your cake and eaten it too today. You could have seen all that progress, you could have seen all those things that have been evolving, and still got the win. So that's the part that I'm pretty frustrated about that. And there's just, like we've been saying time and time again, the margin for error for this team is very slim, even against a team like the Lions. And you can't have 9 penalties. You can't have some of these self-inflicted wounds that they had today. So this is just another example of that. But otherwise, Danny, the one thing we didn't get to talk about on the halftime report was obviously Tevin Jenkins didn't play today. Right. So what did you think of the offensive line?
Well, another game of over 200 yards, and again, the big part, rushing for over 200 yards, and a big part of it, again, is Justin Fields and his ability to create, something out of nothing there and get the 147 yards rushing. But I think Michael Schofield acquitted himself well and nicely, and he's been a real nice veteran backup, able to play both left guard when the Whitehair was out, and then right guard now when Jenkins was out. So I didn't see a big drop off there. In terms of the run, the run blocking, pass blocking, I have to go break down the tape and see exactly how he did in terms of holding up there. But I didn't see anything just in live action that kind of stuck out to me. But again, offensively, I think my biggest, one of my biggest concerns offensively was, where was Chase Claypool? 1 reception for 8 yards was his production today. You gave up a 2nd round pick for him. And again, I didn't expect this guy to come out, have 10 receptions, 132 yards and 3 touchdowns, but I just expected him to have a little bit more, a little more say so in this game. And offensively, it was a no-show. And that's a disappointment for me. For me, it's in terms of the offense as a whole. 30 points, you can't argue with it. That offense that gives you 30 points a game,
right? And
defensively, you're just gonna have to stop them and limit them to 20, 24 points, for your opponent, especially with a team like Detroit, who on the road is not very good outside that dome. And I mean, they're not really good in a dome either. So it's not like this one sucks more because it was a winnable game. And yes, although I've been preaching all year, records don't count. I don't care. I just want Justin's development, and I'm loving that. But at some point, you're gonna have to get some wins just to kind of keep that locker room if you're a Matt Eberflus and that coaching staff, because week in and week out, you go in, you grind, you practice, we watch the tape and all this stuff. And if you're not seeing some results out there in terms of wins, the whole collective effort or the atmosphere in that locker room kind of drops down, and that's something that the coaching staff is going to have to keep their ears and eyes pinned to that atmosphere in that locker room, make sure that doesn't no one drops their heads and all that stuff. But the excitement is there in terms of the quarterback, in terms of his development, some great plays. I have a feeling once I break down some of those big runs, there are going to be some open receivers that he might have been able to hit. So we'll see how that breaks down there. But I'm not trying to knock him or anything. But the kid is electric, and he's just going to get better and better. Imagine once he develops in the pocket, and he's going to be beating teams in the pocket on a consistent basis, and then he adds that dimension of that running ability. Which, by the way, Aldo, remember that the Bear down we did it with we broke down the tape, and I said, it might have been actually might have been off the camera, but I was talking about an aggressive team is going to just jump on anything that Justin Fields does. And when he fakes that run, he's going to pull up and there's going to be a wide open guy down the field. And today it happened to be Cole Kmet on that touchdown pass. Just the attraction of all the eyes defensively that he draws, any movement he does post snap is just amazing. And you see the defender just kind of just rush right to him, and guys come open downfield. But unfortunately, again, we're talking about a loss here.
I gotta respond to a couple comments in the chat from Jordan and Joe. You know, they're disappointed with the loss, and as Danny just said, he's disappointed too because you want to build a culture of winning. But I just feel that we don't have a roster that is capable of winning consistently right now. And so what I am doing is I am compartmentalizing what I am seeing in terms of evaluating talent and making decisions. Is this a guy that you want to take to 2023 and beyond? Is this a guy you can potentially win championships with? Because that's what this season is all about. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we didn't win the game. Would I have liked to have won the game? Absolutely. I'm all about winning. But when you look at things realistically, you don't have the talent. And so you walk away. And then, gotta mention, if the officiating was even-handed, the Bears would have won this game. But nonetheless, we just don't have the talent right now. And so you have to focus in, okay, what did this player do? What did that player do? You got to look at it that way from a Chicago Bears fan, because if not, it's like the old NFL films. I forgot who it was. They're going to eat your heart out. I think it was, I forgot anyway. But that's where we're at with this team, and us as fans have to accept that.
I think that's a good way of putting it, Aldo. You have to compartmentalize this, because you can look at all of these things. Not you don't have to put it all into one basket and say they lost, the team sucks, they're not going anywhere. Like you have to be able to. There's a lot more nuance to this. There's a lot more layers to this, and there's multiple problems that require multiple solutions. It's not just like if we fire that guy, everything's fixed. Just like if you fire Pace and you fire Nagy, you know what? They're probably going to go 12-4 next year. That's just not how things work. There was multiple layers to the problem here. This franchise was a mess, and there was multiple layers that needed peeled back and fixed, and it wasn't going to be an 8-game solution where all of a sudden in the back half of the season they're competing for a wild card of the division. Would I have liked that to be a quick turnaround? Absolutely, but that's just not where it is. I'm pissed off they lost because this is a winnable game, and I think that winning can be contagious. You can build a winning culture. So this one stings a little bit more than some of the other ones do, because not just because it's the Lions and not just because Dan Campbell got his first ever road win as the head coach today, but the fact is that they should have been able to win that game. And then, like I said, see all that evolution and get a win in the win column. It just did not happen. So, take it for what it is. I'm not gonna beat myself up until Thursday thinking I can't believe we lost to the Lions. It's okay, they lost, and then but next week we get to see it. We get to see Justin Fields again. We get to see a week of the progression. We get to see what they continue to do with him. I'm not as much as I'm pretty pissed now. I'm not going to be like, man, that I'm not going to be back in April during the draft. Man, remember that Lions game? We should have had that. Well, come on. Is it the difference between the season right now? It's not. So let's take it for what it is. Be angry about it, but not think that sweeping changes after this. Like, we know what this team is, and we're eventually gonna see the next step, hopefully, in the offseason. I'm staying hopeful about that.
And just real quick before Danny jumps in, is we lost to a team that on paper has more talent than the Chicago Bears at almost every position. Of course, not at quarterback, which is huge, but almost every position, certainly at the wide receiver position, certainly in the offensive line, certainly in some other spots, so you got to keep that in mind too. Look how well we played against a team that on paper is loaded with talent, more talent than the Bears.
Right. I agree. And to piggyback off of that, Aldo, is we know defensively they need to pour resources into that defense, whether it's free agent money or whether it's draft capital, we know that, right? But one thing we can't forget as fans here and as analysts, we cannot forget the stink on this offense that's being covered right now by the cologne that's called Justin Fields, right? So Justin Fields is out there making these sensational plays, allowing the Bears to put up 30 points, and we're thinking, oh, wait, the offense isn't that bad. No, guys, there is still lacking talent on his offense, whether it's receivers, whether it's another tight end to go with Cole Kmet to kind of, help him out. Although Cole Kmet the last couple of weeks has been changing my mind in terms of, is he just a wide tight end, or is he a guy that can be flanked out and be a little bit more of a right? So, I'm keeping my eye on Cole Kmet and his development here in this season here as well. But offensive line, we still need to take a look at center. We still need to take a look at the guard position. Right tackle is something we need to secure. So it's not something that and we need the improvement there from left tackle Braxton Jones. Well, he had a rough day today as well. So and obviously defense, we talked about. We know got to pour money in there and picks, but offensively, don't let that stink be kind of like I said covered here by Justin Fields' cologne.
So Danny, because I don't know, because I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball or a magic wand in front of me. So what can they do with the personnel they have now on defense? What can they do differently? Because this ain't working. And does Matt Eberflus need to have a more hands-on approach with the defense moving forward? Or is it like, what can you actually do? Because something has to change. I get that they're going to pour money into it. They're going to pour draft capital into the defense next year, and it may look wildly different. But in the meantime, you still got some games to play, and you can't keep doing what you're doing today when you can give up whenever it's just like, well, if the team has the ball and there's under a minute, they're probably going to score. So what can you do differently?
I mean, right now, I think there's no one they can bring off, let's say, the practice squad or off the bench and say, all right, play this kid and let's see if it gets better. I mean, they're pretty much playing whoever's out there. I mean, they started 3 rookies again today, and then again, Sam Bourne was a guy that had a great game today. Could he be a starting linebacker that you've discovered now as an undrafted free agent? Possibly. I'm not going to deny that at all. I do like the kid coming out. I did like the kid coming out of Wisconsin, but in terms of what they can do, John, it's like we talked about at halftime. I mean, you got to provide pressure. Well, first you got to stop the run. Everything stops. If you cannot stop the opposing team from running the ball down your throat, you can't do anything in terms of the pass rush. So stop the run and then build from there. Now, on third downs, you got to get off the football field, right? How does that happen? They're not getting pressure with their front 4 guys. I saw them running stunts and loops and games up front with the defensive line. It wasn't working. They started bringing some pressure in terms of blitzing some of the linebackers and stuff like that. That got some pressure. That worked a little bit. But then again, if you keep doing that, you don't disguise your coverages, you don't disguise your blitzes. And next thing you know, a veteran quarterback like Goff is going to rip you apart. And he did in the second half. And we saw some of those big gainers there too on blitzes. So, it's just got to get more in terms of into that laboratory and just come up with solutions in terms of getting off the football field is what you got to do.
I'd like to ask Danny and you, John, a question is, what do you guys think is the main reason why we are giving up a lot of passes in between the linebackers and the defensive backs? What is going on here? Are we, somebody in Twitter asked, do we miss Roquan Smith that much that he, because he would drop back into coverage and create a hole? I don't think that's the problem, but what is the problem? Because that's the biggest thing. We're being hit with explosive plays. And I mean, 15 yards plus these crossing patterns, these patterns just before we get all the way to the cover 2 defense. What's going on? And what's the cause of this?
No pressure.
Yep, that's it. Keep it simple. There's no pressure. And even if you get pressure from the outside guys, there's no pressure up front in the quarterback's face. The quarterback can easily step up in the pocket, buy himself an easy 2-3 more seconds there in the pocket and make a completion downfield. So what you need, that's why the 3 technique in this system is so important, because that 3 technique gets into the backfield, penetrates those gaps, provides instant pressure into the quarterback's face. Now you get the outside guys coming in at him, and all of a sudden the whole pocket is collapsing on the quarterback. That's what we need, is those front 4 guys are not getting enough pressure. And I don't care who we talked about at halftime, John and I don't care who you have back there in defensive secondary. If you can have Pro Bowlers back there, but if the quarterback's got 7-8 seconds to throw the football, there's no way they're going to go ahead and get enough time to make a play there. So you got to get pressure with the front 4 or create it.
Right. I'm just going to jump in on that point that it's I don't think it's rocket science. If I can understand it, it's definitely not rocket science. It's just, if you have no pressure coming from your front 4, then you can't possibly expect your linebackers or secondaries to be covering people for 5-6 seconds. It's just that easy. So, or it's just that easy to notice. Not that easy to fix, but it's just not that it's easy to diagnose. And so, I want to say just keep blitzing. I know that's probably a meatball thing to say. Just blitz, 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 blitz. But what else? What else can you do? What else can you do, Danny? I don't see. I don't know any other. I'm not a defensive coordinator, but that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, the only thing is if you keep blitzing, John, that's fine, and that's you're gonna have to do that because, like I said, they're not getting there. So what happens when you keep blitzing? Now you have to disguise where you're coming from, right? You can't be something. You can't allow these offensive coordinators to be able to read you during the week of preparation, reading the tape and saying, all right, if you see this lineup, you see this formation, and check the mic or check the safety or anything like that. You got to have to disguise your coverages and get creative. Now, again, this defensive front or this defensive system, I should say, is a really vanilla basic system. It's not complicated. It makes, for quicker reaction in terms of the players. They know it quickly. They just look at the football, react, and get to the ball. So, how creative can Alan Williams get? How creative can Matt Eberflus get? That's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, going here in the future. But yeah, if you're not getting pressure with your front four, and we've seen it even with Robert Quinn, they were not getting pressure with their front four. So, it's not like something, Robert Quinn's missing. That's why. No, they haven't been getting pressure all year. So if you can't generate with your front four, you got to create it. And if you can't disguise it, eventually you're going to get beat by it. And that's what's happening so far.
Interesting question. I'm going to switch things up a little bit. Interesting question here from the chat room here from Deadly Chicken. Why was the Cole Kmet injury play not a penalty? Danny, you know which one we're talking about when I believe it was Okuda's knee hit his thigh and he went down. I know that could be called incidental contact, but I'm sure there's times when people have been taken completely off their route and maybe it's incidental contact and they still throw a flag. So what would be the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, you could definitely have called that because, the thing is, Okuda wasn't on the cover. I think he was coming across the field and obviously then Kmet's running a crossing pattern and it would just get a bump knees there. But obviously it was incidental contact. It wasn't done on purpose. So I think, that's why the referees kind of let that go. But again, that was another play where maybe it was questionable there. It could have gone the Bears' way, but it didn't, unfortunately. And it's just like the rest of the penalties here, like a lot of them were ticky tack. I think top of my head, right, I think 3 or 4 of them were like penalties that I didn't even think were penalties. But again, like I think you and I are in the same boat here, John. We don't want to just blame the referees for it because after all that, the Bears still had a lead. And all you had to do was get the Lions off the football field, and you couldn't do it. You couldn't stop them. They went 90 yards. I think I marked it down. It was like there was like 5:23 left, and they went 91 yards on our defense, and you couldn't get them off the football field. So at that point, there's not much you can talk about in terms of the Bears defense. You stop them there, you get the ball back, you probably run the ball out, run the clock out, and the game's over. But as a defense, you could not stop the Detroit Lions with 5 minutes left in the football game from going 91 yards on your ass. So you can't sit there and blame the referees for this one.
Right. And listen, it wasn't all doom and gloom. We saw plenty of good things out of the offense today. And one of those things that you talked about in the halftime show was staying committed to the run to keep sucking the defenders up. And look what happened on that Cole Kmet touchdown pass. Everyone sold out on the run. You saw everyone shifting to that side. And when the Detroit defenders, I'm thinking we're supposed to switch off or something happened there. There was a miscommunication there. And Kmet just was running free. But that's because of being able to have that established run game, is it not?
Right. Exactly. Both Kmet's touchdowns for me. Like the first one was where Justin kind of tucked it. It looked like he was going to do a little quarterback run there. And all of a sudden he stopped in his tracks and Kmet hit Kmet in the end zone for a touchdown. And then the second one for sure, because again, play action, they had been running. They had lined up a heavy package towards that right side. Everything looked run. The offensive line flowed that way. Justin faked that way, he rolled back out. And then, like you said, there was a little miscommunication in the defensive backfield by Detroit. One thought he was going to pass him off to the safety and didn't go with Kmet. And next thing you know, he's wide open by himself. Might be the easiest touchdown Kmet might have in his entire career.
Yeah, and that was a very exciting play because of what they were able to establish on the ground. A lot of people talking about Chase Claypool in the chat, and so we can kind of pivot back to that a little bit. But how difficult is it for a guy who obviously had to just uproot his whole life, move from Pittsburgh, and all the external things that go into, finding a place to stay, where's my locker, all this other stuff that goes on to also learning a playbook, getting on the field and trying to be productive with all that. How long, or does it depend on the player before we can expect this guy to be fully integrated into the system?
Well, it'll be weeks. I mean, it'll be, multiple weeks before he's fully integrated into the system, if you will. I mean, it's a lot of terminology. It's not just the plays. A lot of the NFL playbooks and concepts are all pretty much similar. There are some changes here and there per team, but a lot of terminology is different, right? So he's got to get all that down. and learn that. So for him to be fully, remember, a lot of these players have been in with the system since OTAs, right? Since April. So a lot of these guys got drafted, OTAs, mini camp, training camp. And so a lot of these guys know this playbook in and out. He's not going to know that. And there should be no expectation of him knowing this playbook, inside out. But what the thing is with Claypool is he brings a dimension to your offense that you don't have or you didn't have before. He gives you a guy with, again, I've said this over and over again, 6'4", 240, 40-inch vertical, 4.4 speed. Utilize that strength, right? And I got to go back and look at the tape, to be fair, to see how many out routes did he run, how many routes did he go, just 9 routes, go down the field and just draw a defender with him, And if you're Fields, you see him one-on-one outside, just give him a shot, throw the ball out there. As long as there's no over the top safety help, there's no, he's not coming 2 guys on one. Give him a shot and let's see what he can do with it. That's where I wanted to see it. Now, it could have been, again, that's why I got to look at the tape and see, maybe there are design routes for him running downfield and just Justin didn't have time to throw it or just didn't look his way. We'll have to take a look at that. But that's what I was expecting, at least, is a little bit, some more quick hitting plays and at least a couple of those deep shots down the football field until he gets fully acclimated into the offensive scheme.
And I was going to ask you about that as well, that is it possible that they just don't have enough time for Fields to sit back there and then have the play actually develop and then throw the ball downfield without having to, we haven't been able to look at the tape or anything of that nature to see what the offensive line was doing. But is that a real possibility? There's not time on some of these go routes to see them to fully develop.
Right. And I would say a couple of times there, Justin had some time in the pocket, a nice pocket. I think there was one where he found Mooney it was like, we saw 1, 2, he going through his progression. Mooney was his third progression, bam, hits it, first down. So, but it was rare. We talked about Braxton Jones had a rough day today. Hutchinson was a top 2 pick. So, he had made his presence felt. He had a hell of a play on the goal line there, right, stopping Montgomery short of a touchdown. But I mean, so they have talent, and like Aldo mentioned, Detroit has got a talent on that offense and defensive line. So, this is a team that and they're aggressive. They brought pressure as well. If you notice, the linebacker Alzoloni was blitzing a lot. They disguise some of their things in terms of dropping back and bringing that. A couple times they came up to the A gap, kind of mugged the A gap, and all of a sudden you see both linebackers drop back. So, it's those kind of games where I think the Bears are going to have to get creative too in terms of providing some pressure, disguising stuff. But and again, taking a look and see what happens here at the All-22s. But I just wanted to see a little bit more deep throws to Claypool, just to let the defense know, hey, we are going to take advantage of what this kid does, and that's that 4.4 speed with that big body and big frame, just to get that in the back of their heads, because again, that's another play that could be easily set up with play action, right? You fake the handoff, and next thing you know, Claypool streaking down the football field, and he might be covered, but you throw the ball up there, as long as he's got one-on-one coverage, he can go up there and make a play in football.
I'd like to make a point real quick, John, is, I thought Luke Getsy's play calling was very conservative, even more conservative than it's been all this season. And I was hoping that we would see Justin Fields air things out a little bit, but I wonder if this offensive line had their 9th different starting lineup of the season, or 8th or 7th or whatever. And so I wonder, with the changes at the guard position because of injury, I wonder if Getsy wanted to be especially conservative and stick to the run game because he was concerned about pass protection for Justin Fields. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I thought once they got a lead, things kind of got a tad more conservative, which I wish they would have maybe kept their foot on the gas, knowing your deficiencies on defense, that you might need to score a few more points, because anything can happen whenever you have a very porous defense that can give up a 90-yard drive in under 3.5 minutes or whatever it was. So but also I understand the fact that that's coming off of a pick 6, and you don't want to get your quarterback killed. And if the pass protection, it looks like if it was struggling, then maybe you factor that in. Danny, we'll come to you in a second, but Matt Eberflus is at the podium.
Do that. So, other stuff that was good. Obviously, our run average on both sides was good. I thought explosive plays were about the same. Looking at it, I have to go back and look at it. The third downs were better on defense. Like I said, we were 55% on for us, and then 45% for them. And then we have to do a better job there. Justin was 12 of 20 for 167. Obviously had that really nice run. The third down run was amazing, to get us into have a chance to win the game there. Some things in the kicking game, we got to do a better job, in the kicking game. Obviously kicking out of bounds, that puts us the ball at the 40 midfield there. We have to do a better job there. We also had, obviously the missed extra point. And then we had the holding penalty on the punt team that put them up at the 45-yard line. So there's a couple of things there. We got to clean up in the kicking game. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
What does your offense need to do to be able to get over the hump in these game-deciding moments late in games?
Yeah, it just comes down to us practicing. It comes down to what we're doing on the practice field. We got to do it in the practice field on a consistent basis. And then I think when you get to the games, you'll be more comfortable to be able to execute in those moments. We just got to be able to do that as a group.
How frustrating is it for you to have a 14-point lead at home going into the fourth quarter and not be able to?
Yeah, like I said, you have to be able to overcome things. You have to be able to overcome things. I've seen it before, through my years of coaching that, you have to be able to overcome adversities, and that could come in many forms, like I said. And when you do that, you'll see it. You'll be like, okay, there it is. And, guys are, overcoming through execution, making plays in the critical moments. And then what you do is you end up winning the game.
But Matt, what went to the decision to not play Velus Jones and N'Keal Harry today?
Yeah, that's really what I said last week. We thought for us, it was the best 5 up for us for this particular game. And that's what we decided best for the Chicago Bears this week. And again, with Dante doing a good job on the punt returns, and he's continuing to do a nice job back there catching the ball. And he got some good yards today too.
Justin at the end of the first half and he puts his shoulder down and gets in the end zone. What does that do for you going into the half, just from a momentum point of view? And just, we heard a couple guys talk about just the intensity of contact for him to get through.
No, it was great. It was a great run. We were down in that situation. We were running out of time, so we were going to go to call timeout if we didn't make it there. But for sure, his like I said, his grit, his toughness, how physical he can be, how strong he is, that's what makes him a special player.
Does any of this worry you long term, though? Because quarterbacks over the course of the whole season that run, he's getting hit to today. Even. So does any of this worry you in the longer term? How much he is running?
Well, I think that you got to be smart. I've used the term wisdom and discernment as he goes through there. There was a couple times where he took a couple shots today, but he also slid and got himself out of bounds a couple times. And again, when you're an athlete like that, he's got to use that wisdom when he's in that part of the field to make sure he gets down or gets out of harm's way.
Did you get an explanation for the hands to the face on Jalen? The penalty there on the Sanborn interception.
Yeah, really, what a nice play by Sanborn. I mean, gosh, getting in the window there, and that was really a game changer, I thought, for him and his growth. Obviously he had the 2 sacks and had the interception, had 13 tackles, I believe it was. So he really had a nice game today for us. But in terms of the penalty, I got to go back and look at it. But what I saw on the jumbotron, we'll see if I see what I see tomorrow. So we'll see, or later today. So.
Does Jay surprise you at all? Because, 2 games, he's coming in, his rookie, he didn't play at all, basically just special team. 2 really good games.
Well, if you go back and look at the preseason, if we go way back and look at preseason, you saw what kind of player he was, right? He's very instinctual. He makes a lot of plays on the ball, always, reads his keys. He's always on it that way. So, yeah, we're pleased with where he's going.
Is there any specific reason that we saw less of Chase today?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. Our plan was to get him in there. Like sometimes, hey, coverages take certain things away. And if he was the primary, maybe we went to the secondary. So I just have to go back and look at it. But our plan was to get him involved.
When Detroit got the ball for the last time, was there consideration by you of just letting them score there, given the time?
No, we were trying to stop them there. We weren't in that mode yet at that point. But certainly we have to do a better job on defense there. We got him to a 3rd and 8, I think it was 3rd and 9, and up giving that up. And gave up a couple chunk plays on that drive. We have to do a better job.
And as you try to build a culture with this team, what are these guys missing out on by not getting over the top in these games and not stacking these wins?
Well, I tell you what they are getting is perseverance, right? Determination. That's what they will get. So everybody's going to look at this and say, hey, we're, you've lost 6 out of 7, all the things that the outside noise is going to be. Well, let's have winning habits. Make sure we have winning habits every single day, right? On Monday, tomorrow, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which they do. They've practiced hard. They're doing the right thing. It's about determination and perseverance, okay? And staying the course. And that's what they're going to learn. And that's what they are learning. So they got to have their eyes forward. They got to look at their performance for what it is and then move forward to the next game. And they've done that. And then it will eventually crack. if we keep having winning habits and doing things the right way and executing in the critical moments, it will crack.
On the interception, how much of that is Justin's competitive showing for there, and how do you as a coach?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
On the interception he threw that was returned.
Yeah.
How much is that his competitiveness, his desire to make a play, and how, as a coach, do you ride, advising him not to make that throw while also like keeping his competitive nature?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to tell you the same thing. I should have just thrown it away. But what you understand about that young man is that, man, he's a fighter, right? So he has the ability, and you've seen it during the course of this year, to reset. So, we talked about it on Sunday. He said, man, just reset. And then sure enough, 3rd and 1, boom, there he goes. And that's just him. He's a fighter through and through, and man, he's tough as nails, and he's going to continue to do that, prepare the way he's prepared for each week.
Coach, still struggling to create consistent pass rush. I saw you guys had a couple of inverted defensive line formations. What are you trying, what's the key to trying to unlock the pass rush? Is going to, you have to dial up more blitzes. What's it going to take to get some pass rush?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think we had 3 today. Was that right? Jack had 1. So I think it's just really using our secondary pieces, a little bit more. Using our safeties, our linebackers to really help the D line there. And then we'll do whatever we can with those 4 or 5 guys or 6 guys, 7 guys we have to unlock those guys.
Kyler Gordon had a near sack and then he hustled back to make a play.
Yeah.
Got a penalty on it.
Right.
Typify the frustration of today. He was a guy doing what you want to do, hustle, and it still turned out bad. Any frustration on your own part about the way that play turned out?
No, I mean, he obviously wants to make the play initially, of course, but I certainly love the hustle, to the sideline. I think he actually caused a fumble on the sideline there. Was 50 yards away from me. So, but we'll have to look at the replay and all that and adjust from there.
On your last drive, Kmet goes down as Justin's kind of winding
Yeah.
up. Did the ball scored away because Justin tried to hang on to it because it was going down? Did you get an evaluation of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was incidental contact. I think with number 1 on their team, and I think they just ran into each other. So, but I'll have to look at it.
Concerns about Kmet's health?
I don't know right now.
Matt, do you have a feeling on how the passing game late in games can be jump started so that those deciding moments can be flipped the way?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to look at it. We'll look at it and see where it is and see what we can do. We're always trying to be, forward thinking and look and see how we can improve all of our units, and that's one aspect of it for sure.
What's your sense of what's missing there right now? Because obviously it's not.
I would just say, in the general statement, execution. We just got to execute in those moments. If it's whatever that might be, it could be protection, it could be route depths, all those things that come into play in the passing game. But we'll have to look at it with a critical eye.
Those scenarios so often, dating back to training camp.
Right.
They're obviously important in your mind, and you need to master them to be able to win. Is there a sense of frustration that it's not like you haven't devoted time or energy or resources to it, but it's still not taking off?
Yeah, I would just say, like I said, determination and perseverance. That's going to take the whole group, to get it done. In a 2-minute situation, defense has got to play better to not put us in that situation. Offense, when they're in there, we got to execute and get it done. So it's about the whole group. It's about the football team together.
Coach, you lost some games early in the year with some of your younger players making some critical mistakes. Today, some of your more veterans, some of your better players, you talk about Jalen Johnson giving up some throws late, Justin Fields with the interception, Cairo with the miss. Is it more frustrating when these some of your better players, more reliable players, they kind of cost you big?
Yeah, I would just say it's always come down to the whole football team. There's going to be 6 or 7 plays that happens in every game. That's the critical plays, and it could be a young player, it could be a guy that's an older player. That doesn't, for us, we got a young football team. We got to execute. So that's where it is.
That's Matt Eberflus, his post-game press conference. Danny, I'm sure that you are inspired. You learned a lot from that. You have a better understanding of the inner workings of the Chicago Bears. What are your initial takeaways from that?
Yeah, I got all that from that press conference there, John. But no, the one thing with Eberflus is, I give him credit. He's not as rumbling and just babbles on, but like Nagy did, the last couple of years. So at least I listened to him, and he makes sense in some things. But a couple of things I wanted to kind of bring up there was that penalty on Jalen Johnson, the hands to the face on that Sanborn interception. I don't think, did you guys see that replay? Because I didn't show a replay of it, and I don't think he hit his face mask. I mean, he may have grazed it with his finger, but I don't think it was an actual hand to the face. I think it was just a really good press at the line of scrimmage, which unfortunately the guy got hurt. But that's the one thing there. And then the other thing is like, all right, you talked about, he's talking about, we had some sacks, and you had 2 sacks, and all by Sam, both were by Sam Byrne. And again, another week now where the only person who's getting a sack is your linebacker, because you're bringing them, you're blitzing them. And again, I don't know. We talked about it earlier, John. I'm not sure what he can do in terms of who they can play, what else they can do, other than just, like I said, bring more design pressure and just kind of try and disguise it as best as you can. But man, it is very, very frustrating. And the one thing that no one asked them was in terms of the mixed extra point. And I know Cairo had a bad kickoff, and that's not characteristic of Cairo Santos. Detroit punter and their kicker had some funky looking kicks as well. I was curious if the field conditions were not conducive to kicking today. If they weren't, why not? No one asked that question too. So that's what I was really curious about.
Aldo, you always like weighing in on press conferences. You always think they're very useful tools. What did you take out of that?
Yeah, I really enjoy listening to the press conferences, but you're absolutely right, John and Danny. That was one of the most boring ones. After a game, it was like, I really want to go home and spend some time with the family. So, I do think my biggest concern is this. In I think it was Wednesday's press conference, Matt Eberflus was asked about the mentality of this team, the mental health of this team. And he said, yeah, it's been good. It was actually, I think Mark Potash or Patrick Finley said, this team seems to be in really good spirits in the locker room. They're up and so forth. And Eberflus said it's because of the culture that we've built here, that we, really believe what we are working towards, what we're striving towards. And so I understand Jordan's point and Danny's point and everybody else who's saying, yeah, but these are precious games that you should have won, and that chips away at that culture, because if you don't get good results, it's going to chip away at it. So I understand that, and I totally appreciate it. My guess, my gut feel is that Eberflus and his coaching staff, they're going to maintain that composure about this team. They're going to keep them invested in what they are building here. These players, a lot of them are on 1-year contracts. They want to be back here next season. They want to be back. Number one reason is because of number one.
Do we want them back?
That is correct.
We're building a culture, but how many of these guys are actually going to be on the team next year? That you're going to build them up and then be like, oh, by the way, we're replacing you with somebody better. So you should be worried about a core group of players that are going to be your core of your offense and your defense. Worry about their culture, and then they'll take everybody else underneath them. How many guys they have under contract next year? Like 30?
Yeah.
so
a little less than 30 last time I looked.
Right. So let's not think that they're bringing the exact same 65, 70 guys back with the practice squad back next year, and everyone's got to be on the same page, because they're just not going to be there. But yeah, I get it. This is the one that you absolutely want to win, and that's what I was going to bring up. Although I'm not sure if you have the schedule graphic handy, but these winnable games are not aplenty. We have 2 coming up when you have Atlanta and the Jets, and that they look a little bit better. Both those teams look a little bit better than we thought they were at the beginning of the season. Who knows what's going on with Green Bay? Hell, that could be a winnable game at home. That would be awesome. You want to talk about a culture beater, a culture builder? You go and you beat Green Bay at home in week 13. There's your culture right there. You have a stretch of games here before you have your bye week in week 14, and then you have a fun slew of the Eagles and the Bills. And by the way, Merry Christmas in week 16. You get to see the Bears play the Bills on Christmas Eve, I believe that is. And then you have to go to Detroit, and then you end with Minnesota. So you have I think there's opportunities here. Yeah, there's opportunities here to keep building and get a few more wins. There's not an easy win. I mean, we're talking about the Bears. There's not going to be an easy win on this schedule. But Danny, when you look at that, how many of those games do you think are winnable?
Well, I mean, this one I had marked down as
Right.
a really winnable game, and obviously you don't pull this one off. I mean, Atlanta again, winnable game. You're going down to the Dome there in Atlanta. I don't see them as a juggernaut, even though I think they're competitive in the NFC South. The Jets, offensively, they got some weapons, they got some firepower. The question is their quarterback in terms of, is he as progressed as their defense and their offense is? But for me, it's like, man, that Jets game scares me with that defensive front and with this offensive line. I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull off a victory there as well. So I'm with you, John. Like they could win in Atlanta, they could lose easily. They could win at Jets, they can easily lose. So it's hard for me to say, how many more victories are coming up. Like I said, if today they couldn't pull this one off at home versus the Lions, oh man, it's going to be tough. But this is the NFL, right? They're going to win on one of these games that we're not going to be shocked by. Who knows? Maybe they beat the Eagles week 15. God knows, right? But it's just like it's just one of these things. Like they're going to get a victory, and I think once they get the victory, I think, and obviously if Justin continues his development, the offense continues their development, I think that could springboard to maybe 2 or 3 more victories in the season. But at this point right now, with what they are right now, you just want to keep that culture and that locker room, like I said earlier, motivated and out there playing week in and week out. All makes a great point. A lot of them are a bunch of 1-year contracts. You do not want to put bad tape out there for next year's offseason. So, we'll see how that goes. But it's just one these games that you should win. This one and the one against Miami and the ones where you blew late leads. Those are like the gut punches where me as an analyst, I'm looking at it as just, Justin Fields and him, his progression. But for those guys in the locker room, for them to, because they're putting in the work, they're putting in the grind, they want to be rewarded, every so often. And just these losses, I think, takes a toll on the team collectively. So just for that the team morale, I like to see a couple wins here and there. But as long as, like, for me personally, as long as Justin Fields is going up this way, that's all I'm concerned about.
Aldo, how many quote winnable games? I'm using that term incredibly loosely, by the way. But games that you think that they're going to be competitive in that they have a real chance to win that, because I think that they can. That with week 11 and 12, I think they can compete and potentially beat both the Falcons and the Jets. I'm interested in the Green Bay game because they were able to run the ball pretty well against Green Bay in the first game, and now with this unleashed version of Justin Fields, who is going to have a few more designed runs potentially. Who knows what they could do against Green Bay? I wouldn't say that they're going to be the favorite and they're going to go into. Green Bay's going to come into Soldier Field and get whooped. But why not? It's not like what Green Bay has the same record as the Bears at this point. I think so. What are we talking about?
Yep, and they are scoreless in the first quarter at home against the Cowboys right now. I got to say this, and I'm embarrassed to utter these words, but I don't care if they lose every game, the rest. I've never, ever in my life been about tanking, and I'm not advocating for tanking. I just know that they don't have the player personnel to compete legitimately for a playoff spot this year. So what I am most interested in, I put this up in the chat room. I wish I could go to sleep and wake up the first day of free agency. Because that's where we're headed. Now, I love football so much that I'm going to watch the next 7 games and I'm going to pray that they're going to win. But I have this like Zen-like feeling in that there are better days ahead, that there's a ray of light that's going to come down. And now this all of course depends on Ryan Poles and his player acquisition team, pro personnel for free agency and scouts, college scouts. This all depends on them making a lot of really good decisions this upcoming off season. But I trust in them. I'm a little skittish a little bit because of the Velus Jones thing is starting to look like a really bad draft pick. And there's been a couple of other errors along the way for Ryan Poles, but he's going to get better too in his job, just like a lot of the players we see playing are going to get better too. So when you ask me that question, how many are winnable games? I hate to say this. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't care. That's
fine. You just want to hit that simulation button, simulate the whole way out simulate to the draft, simulate the free agency, just force advance. We're good. And I get it. But I think you made a good point there in that now Poles and to an extent Eberflus have put the pressure on themselves now because they traded Roquan Smith, they traded Robert Quinn, which is whatever. That's part of the plan. Go with it. But now the pressure is on you, and every move you make now is going to be highly dissected and criticized and under a microscope, starting with the draft or starting with free agency, all the way to the draft, all the way to everything else. They're installing this 2023 version of the Chicago Bears. Every little thing they do is going to be very highly critiqued, which I'm sure they understand comes with the position. I'm not saying anything, groundbreaking here. But if you're going to go in and you're going to sweep everything, you're taking this thing down to the studs basically and saying we're going to rebuild this. Now it's you're building it. You're not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to blame Ryan Pace anymore. We're not going to be able to blame Matt Nagy anymore, or, anybody else. If, the ghosts of Chicago Bears past are not going to come back and haunt. This is your house you're building now, and everyone's got to live in it. So if it starts falling apart, there's only one or two people that you can really point the finger at, which I have confidence that they're going in the right direction. I'm with you, Aldo. I have hope. I'm not thinking like, oh man, this is all going to fall apart. I believe that there is a plan, and I believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you don't have to look any further than seeing Justin Fields back there. But now once this season finally once we're done with this season, then the eyes really start lighting up and you really start paying attention to what the Bears are doing. And, I'm sure that'll breed a lot of civil conversations, a lot of, just civil arguments where no one's going to get personal. No one's going to get mean. No one's going to call you a moron for disagreeing with them. I'm sure it's going to be very, very diplomatic in the way we handle those conversations. Just like all conversations are handled on the internet, it's going to be with respect and dignity and obviously a self-enrichment where both people can leave saying, I'm glad I learned something today. I'm sure that's exactly what's going to happen. Danny, you're with me on that, right?
Yes, of course. It's always civil on the internet. I mean, that's where you go to get civil conversation is the internet. That's where I go.
That's where I need to when I need a breath of fresh air. I just log on to Twitter and see someone arguing about something. That really
it's like a ray of sunshine, just beams in on you. It's like
right. Let's talk because he was kind of an unsung hero. Well, not an unsung hero, but a nice surprise was Jack Sanborn. Do you see this guy in the long term plans?
I do. I mean, personally, I do. I mean, I don't know if he's not going to be the weak side linebacker in the system. I think it's either the middle or possibly more likely the strong side linebacker. And what the thing about this kid is what he lacks, and we've talked about this, before, what he lacks in terms of overall athletic prowess, which he's not a scrub out there in terms of athlete, but he makes up in terms of instincts and his physicality and just the aggressiveness. And him, I tweeted earlier in the game, his run fits first couple, series of the game were impressive. That guy comes in physical at the point of attack. There was one where he didn't make the tackle, but what he did was he came in, he took on a 300+ pound offensive lineman. It might've been Decker, took him on in a hole and allowed his teammate to go out and make the tackle. And that goes unsung in the stat sheet, but if you review the tape, the coaches are going to give him a praise for that because he took on a big boy, stood him out the line of scrimmage, allowed, occupied that blocker, and then his teammate came up and rallied and make a tackle. So, this is a kid, obviously the 2 sacks today, shows on a surprising burst. I just talked about, athletically he's not the greatest, but he shows some sort of a closing burst there in that short area, quickness, again, instincts, he's there right before, like kind of diagnosis, posting pre-snap quickly. So I do like this kid. I do give him a heck of a chance to make the football team. Be a starter and a contributor, main contributor on the football team. Obviously, he's made the team, but I'm really impressed. And he was a bright spot today in defense. But one thing we need to touch on a little bit on a negative side, I think, is Jalen Johnson. I think just today, I know he's coming in with an injury, and he was questionable in terms of playing. So maybe that what hindered him. But I mean, Kennedy, the slot tight end, if you will. I mean, he burned him on that crossing route, and it was a 44-yard gain. That was 3rd and 8. And that right there was a big play right there. Because if you get that ball back to the offense, and next thing you know, I think that was part of that 91-yard drive where they ended up taking that, taking the lead there. So get the ball there, maybe, incompletion, make it 4th and 8, and never know what happens. But, Jalen Johnson really struggled today. Gordon had some after some, consecutive weeks of making some nice plays that he missed that sack. That penalty for me was not a penalty on. He didn't push him. He just went to swipe the ball out, and plus Goff was still in bounds. So, but missing the sack was the big thing. I mean, you're trying to generate pressure here. Like I said, bringing him from all sides, all angles. when you're a defender, when you get there, you got to bring the guy down. You cannot miss him, right? I think a couple of times, my man Robinson was a Gibson, again, had Goff maybe wrapped up dead to rights, and he was able to kind of wiggle himself out of it, make a play. So because you're giving up these big chunk plays as a front seven, if you get to the quarterback, you got to bring him down. You got to get off the football field and just give your offense a chance to go ahead and get some points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty safe to say he's a fan favorite already. Mr. Sanborn is. I'm remembering back to the Sanborn conversation. I think that you're right, and something doesn't look right with Jalen Johnson. He looks like he's banged up or a step slow or something. I don't know what it is, but something just doesn't look like he's 100%. So perhaps that's something that he's working through and he's playing through an injury. But overall. You look at a guy like Sanborn, you think, hey, maybe that's a nice little that's one bright spot out of a terrible defensive effort. But you see,
right.
the kid had an interception, got called back, but it was an athletic play. He was in the right. He seems to be one of those smart linebackers as opposed to ones who can just rely on his God-given physical ability, well, right. or just being a physical freak. And so sometimes those smart linebackers can they just find a way to be in the right spot, and they can overcome that. So it's maybe that's where he's going to be allowed to progress in this defense a little bit.
Speaking of enlightenment on the internet, I think I went there and I think one of us, not me or you, John, gave him the nickname of Samurai Jack.
I did that.
That was Aldo, yeah.
You like that?
You got being a little facetious there.
You should have saw you saw his eyes light up as soon as you said that. Like, wait a minute, that was my idea. Ooh,
is it catching on?
Someone noticed my creativity there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot better nicknames than that, but I can think of one, so I put that in there. But I gotta say this about Jack Sanborn. When he was selected, I was really, really happy because I saw him play at Wisconsin. He's a kid that plays with a lot of heart, and he's got that bear, football mentality. But I certainly didn't expect him to play as well as he has. I truly thought that he was going to be at least a camp body, and if not a camp body, then somebody who was going to be primarily special teams. But this guy is staking a claim to be a huge contributor at that linebacker position. And Danny, I asked people in the chat room, what particular player or position they would love for you to do some tape evaluate on the next Bear Truth, and it comes down to Sanborn and the linebacker position getting a lot of votes. So let's plan on at least picking a handful of plays from the linebacker position, along with any other things that you want to cover.
Yeah, you got it. I think Morrow had a couple of nice stops there as well. I mean, you see him kind of with his defense again. What you see when they're going lateral, you see those gaps, those openings. You want a linebacker quick enough, athletic enough to be able to shoot those gaps and get into the backfield, penetrate, and make a tackle. And I think a couple of times Morrow made the play. Obviously, Sanborn made a couple of big plays. I think he had 2 tackles for loss, along with the 2 sacks and the should have been interception, in my opinion. So, definitely a guy. And again, he's a demon on special teams. So, it could be a nice find as an undrafted free agent here for Ryan Poles and company. But I mean, you guys touched about earlier in terms of the foundation. Going back real quick here, in terms of the foundation and everything. I mean, and the big piece here, what gives everyone hope, I think, is the big piece of the foundation was already been cast here with Justin Fields. And all I gotta do is just build around him, right? And you build a competent defense. I hope that they find a way to keep Montgomery and keep that combo together in terms of that rushing attack, and just kind of give you more options there in the backfield. Because when you line them up in that like triple option, if you will, backfield where you have both Herbert and Montgomery in there, and you have Fields kind of sweeping to the outside, if you're a defender, you're kind of frozen because you don't know who to go for, because either one of those guys can run you over or can run right past you. So I think that's a nice combination. Hopefully they can keep that together. But yeah, offensively, again, let's not forget there's some talent here, but there's a lot more talent hopefully being infused coming in via the draft, via free agency and all that stuff. So, but defense is going to be something that definitely is going to get a rehaul.
And don't forget, next week is the Ryan Pace revenge game. He's with the Atlanta Falcons. And I was curious because it just seems like he's taking all of the old Bears and taking them to Atlanta with him. So so you can't tell me that he doesn't have a big impact on their roster, because I'm looking at their depth chart. Listen to some of the names that are on the Atlanta Falcons depth chart here. Just going through some former Bears, you have Nick Kwiatkowski plays on the Atlanta Falcons. So does obviously Cordell Patterson, but he was there before Ryan Pace left. Jermaine Ifedi, Elijah Wilkinson, Demir Bird. A lot of these familiar names, huh? They all. Ryan Pace said, "Hey, get in the car. We're going down to
Abdullah
Atlanta."
Anderson is there too. Abdullah Anderson, the
Yeah,
defensive
and
lineman there as well.
they signed Eddie Goldman and then he ended up retiring, but they signed Eddie Goldman as well. So Atlanta was Chicago South almost. So
Maybe we can book him on one of our shows this week, Ryan Pace, and talk
how he
about
loves interviews in the middle of the season. So
I figured they were bringing in all those ex-Chicago Bears because they wanted to tank.
That's very possible. But although I believe they were tied for first place going into today. So,
I think Johnny made just real quick. Sorry, and although Johnny made a really great point, or John, or although in terms of Ryan Poles, the pressure is on him. The pressure is on him this offseason because if he screws this offseason up, that's pretty much. I mean, this is his opportunity to build this team around this young quarterback and this get this defense. I mean, obviously he's gonna make mistakes, right? He's not gonna be 100, not gonna bet 1,000 here, but he's got to get at least 8 out of 10 acquisitions. Got to be right? Because he's got to building it from scratch. So Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, the assistant general manager, and that scouting staff, pro and college, have a lot of pressure this offseason coming up on them.
I was just going to say real quickly that Justin Fields has still not approached the podium. And so that makes me wonder one of two things. One, we all know that he gets very upset after a loss. And so maybe he's reluctant to go to the podium, or two, maybe he's hurting a little bit because of all the pain that was inflicted on him. So
there was blood coming down from the side of his neck there. They caught it on the scratch. Maybe it's the scratch, but I know he was kind of holding his side towards tail end there. So hopefully he's okay, just getting some treatment, or just, kind of just, like Aldo said initially, just, burning off some steam and just doesn't want to go out there and just be, angry.
Yeah, it is what it is. So before we start wrapping things up, we just want to thank everybody who joined in the chat room. I know it is not easy to talk about the Bears after a loss like that, especially when you're frustrated and you're not sure who am I supposed to yell at, who am I supposed to be angry at, who am I supposed to hate, and then there's a lot of just misguided where am I supposed to put all this fury? So I appreciate everyone unleashing your fury in the chat room and having a pretty good conversation along the way. Help us keep going as well. Aldo, before we go ahead and put down the curtain, what do we got going on this week?
Well, I just first of all want to thank Don Burr for being in the chat room. He's always here after Bears win. No, he's never here. What am I talking about? Yeah. But anyway, congratulations, Don Burr, on your Lions winning a game. Like I said earlier, it's a game they should have won. They had all the talent to do so, but we'll get you next time. What do we have going? Well, we've got Greg Gabriel and I are going to be talking football on Tuesday now. We had to push back from tomorrow because I had to book a massage. There goes Danny.
Your self-care treatment now is getting in the way of programming.
I got like a really bad pain here, and so I need my masseuse to work it out. Monday was the only time, and so
John, I don't know if I told you, but every time we go to Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, we lose Aldo for at least a half a day, possibly even a full day, because he gets his massage.
Are you having did travel hurt your back, old man? What's going on?
Hey, it's just age, man. You'll see when you get to this age, you'll be crying out for massages too. But in any case, we do have football programming on Monday, and that is the Bears Country podcast at 7 p.m. If people want Bears fans who are dejected and angry, that's the show to listen to, because Dan Aguirre and Mr. Shorty are definitely not going to be happy, and Cliff Victoria always does his cool Cliff Notes. And so that's the football coverage for Monday. On Tuesday, as I said, Greg Gabriel and I will discuss the game. He guaranteed a Lions win, so we'll see what he's got to say about that. And then on Tuesday night, it's the Dan and Aldo Bare Their Souls show. By that time, hopefully, Dan Aguirre is not in the fetal position anymore, and he can intelligently talk about the game. So, by the way, I had to let him have it because Cole Kmet is a tight end, and Dan Aguirre wanted to cut Cole Kmet last season. Just cut him. Just cut a 23-year-old tight end. I didn't get that. But that's our programming. We've got a lot more Bears programming, including with Danny Shimon in the middle of the week on Wednesday. Tell him about it, Danny.
Yeah, I was looking forward to doing another Bear Truth, and we're going to break down some film, and we just got the idea of terms of hovering on Jack Sanborn. We're scheduling it for this week, but I may have to postpone that, although I got some work obligations that were just thrown at me. So we'll discuss in terms of when that's going to come out. But yeah, we'll study Sanborn, break him down, and possibly even look at some of the other linebackers here on the defense. You guys let us know who you guys wanted to break down. Last week we did or 2 weeks ago we did a Justin Fields breakdown. We'll do defensive players here. It looks like Sanborn is the guy that the fans want in the crosshair. So we'll go ahead and break him down for you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And Buffon 55 will be back on Wednesday. We'll be breaking down the upcoming matchup with the Falcons, see what the route to victory is and what the defense could potentially do. We'll talk to somebody who closely covers the Falcons, and Alyssa Barbieri and I and Aldo will be having a little bit of a therapy session about the Chicago Bears, as we always do, very therapeutic. So unless anybody else has anything to say for the good of the order, I think we're going to wrap it up. That will do it for Bear Football. I appreciate everyone tuning in, whether it's the live version, the podcast version, the video version, the audio version. We appreciate each and every one of you. For Aldo Gandia and Danny Shimon, I'm John Buffon. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.